Hades, lord of the dead and god of the underworld. His domain was buried deep beneath the earth, and it was where you would enter once your mortal life had ended. So, just how evil was this infamous god? Is there a chance he is being misjudged? We are going to have a look at some of the most important facts about Hades and determine a clearer image of this mysterious god. Our first point is also the most obvious. Hades was god of the dead. He was said by some to be friendly towards the dead, seeming to find more solace in them than he did the living. And Hades himself was free to visit Earth, as and when he pleased, yet he rarely did. He chose to spend almost all of his time in the underworld, surrounded by the dead, which gives the impression of a dark, malicious deity, not only to ourselves, but also to the ancient Greeks, bringing us to our second point. He was feared by the Greeks. The association of Hades with death and the afterlife meant he was not a beloved figure. Rarely did they have festivals in the name of Hades, there was no city dedicated to him, and in general, he was not worshipped at all. This was very different to their treatment of other gods, and they would even go as far as avoiding saying the name of Hades. It was safe to say the Greeks feared and even had great disdain towards Hades. This wasn't the only issue Hades had with making friends, taking us to our next point. He avoided the gods. Another reason we have to think of Hades as a lesser righteous god than his brothers and sisters was simply his lack of interaction with them. He did not seek out the company of other gods or offer them his assistance. He seemed to lack interest in socializing at all with his own family. Now, this is not an inherently evil trait, but it does build the character that was Hades, a sullen and isolated deity. In fact, one of the few gods he does interact with is Persephone. But when we say interacts, maybe that's not the best term. Let's look at our fourth point for more on this. He kidnapped Persephone. Yes, Hades actually kidnapped what would be his future wife. The complete story is a discussion for another video. But in brief, one day Hades saw Persephone and fell in love with her instantly. He abducted her and took her to the underworld, where he then made her his wife. However, Persephone's mother, Demeter, was devastated to have lost her daughter. She turned to Zeus, who was Persephone's father, and demanded he had her returned. So despite protests from Hades, Persephone was taken back to Mount Olympus, but due to a special arrangement, she would spend a few months of each year with him in the underworld, serving as his queen. This story of abduction truly shows the evil and deceit that Hades was capable of. So, putting this all together, we can see the Greeks disliked and even feared Hades. He chose to live among the dead and avoided his godly companions, and of course, he kidnapped and forced marriage from an innocent goddess. But, despite all this, we still shouldn't see Hades as evil, and here's why. First, yes, he was Lord of the Dead and was feared by the Greeks, but they would also fear Poseidon when they took to the seas, or they feared Zeus when the weather became violent. The difference is that they would pray and offer sacrifices to appease these other gods, but Hades was not swayed by such offerings. He had no egotistical need to be worshipped. He saw his duties and his job as above the offerings of the mortals. This inability to be influenced meant he was feared, but also seen as stern and fair. Likewise, it should not be a surprise that he avoided the other gods, especially when we consider the character of them. Like we said, Hades focused on his work and maintaining consistent fairness. The other gods, not so much. His brothers, Zeus and Poseidon, would regularly cause trouble. They would take vengeance over petty issues, sleep around, cheating on their wives, cause arguments with other gods, and so on. Hades simply did not enjoy or subscribe to the same lifestyle as them. So why would he want to hang around with what he considered to be such bad influences? To his brothers, it made him boring and isolated, but to Hades, it was the right thing to do. This brings us to the issue of Hades kidnapping his wife. Sure, an immoral and indefensible act. Except, Zeus actually promised Persephone to Hades. He just didn't tell Demeter this. And when she got upset, he didn't admit to it, but kept quiet. And let's not forget, Poseidon and Zeus would regularly rape and kidnap a ridiculous number of women, both mortals and goddesses alike. This was the only time Hades did anything comparable to that, and it was under the guise that he had her father's blessing. If we are to hold Hades to the same judgment as the other gods, he seems like a near saint in comparison. In fact, This is why it could be argued that not only is Hades not an evil or malignant god, but actually may be one of the most benevolent gods. Because in comparison to his brothers, he did not abuse his power anywhere near the same level. So whilst it's easy to see him as the Greek mythology equivalent of the devil or of Satan, to us, these comparisons fail in capturing the essence and character of Hades. He was actually much closer to a benevolent, yet misunderstood, god of the afterlife. Let us know what you think, and as always, thanks for watching.